I've been fortunate enough in my life to be given the opportunity to have an education in Australia. Coming from Malaysia, I went to an Australian high school at the age of 15. Through my experience, I saw that having a plan early into your journey to migration will tremendously increase your chances. That's why I want to share with you everything I learned about trying to obtain a permanent residency status here in Australia, the difficulties I've witnessed from the options available, and share with you my recommendations if this is a pathway you're considering for your future. Before I get into my first tip, I'm going to ask you for a quick favor. If you could just tap the like button below, this will help the YouTube algorithm understand that this video is worth sharing with others with similar interests to you. I also want to note that I'm merely sharing my own experience. If you're considering this pathway, I highly recommend consulting a migration lawyer to understand the legalities of each pathway. I hope you find this information useful, and all I ask in return is that one tap. The process of obtaining a permanent residency can be a grueling experience filled with a lot of time spent not knowing if what you're applying for is really worth it. Figuring out your why is pivotal in this process. I've seen so many people burn out because the process was so time consuming and the feeling of regret on missing out on other things in life weighs heavy on you. This could mean sacrificing time away from important relationships, like missing out on important events such as weddings or new additions to the family. This could mean missing out on gatherings during the funeral of beloved people in your life. This could mean being stuck in lockdown with unpredictable events such as the COVID-19 pandemic. My why revolved around the actualization of my sexuality as a gay man, living in a country where homosexuality is criminalized. I'll talk about that here in this video. It's also important to note that in Australia, you're required to physically stay 2 out of your 5-year PR period within the Australian borders. So if you're looking to getting a PR as a backup option to live in a country that isn't your own, I would highly recommend reconsidering this pathway, as the investment to maintain this status may be a heavier burden than you may realize. If you find the importance in sticking to its lifetime value for yourself, then by all means, I wish you all the best to push ahead. Number 1, work-sponsored visa. Every couple of years, the Australian government releases a list called the Skilled Occupation List, or SOL, that summarizes the occupations Australia needs to fill skill shortages within its borders. The list is designed for those with skill and qualifications who are seeking short-term and long-term skilled jobs in Australia. The list is then broken down into other subcategories that may prioritize certain occupations over others. In 2021, the Priority Migration SOL consists of these occupations. And there may be more that may not be prioritized right now, so the process may be just a little longer. This information is updated quite often and would require persistent research to understand if you correctly fit into this category. I'll provide links to the official website hosting this information in the description below. With that said, this was my success story. In 2017, I re-entered the Australian workforce as a marketing specialist under a temporary working visa that granted me 4 years in this country. This allowed me to be considered for permanent residency once I'd dedicated 2 years working in this field. The organization that I was then working with had migration lawyers on deck. They were able to help me with the caveat that I was bound to this organization for at least 2 years. If you're considering this option from outside of Australia, then it would require you to secure a permanent contracted role with an organization before entering the country. I was personally fortunate to have this opportunity through my support network. If you don't have much of a connection to Australia, then my suggested way of doing this is to apply through online employment forums such as seek.com.au or LinkedIn. Number 2, graduate onto the SOL. Qualifying with a certain degree or a master's in the SOL will increase your chances when applying for your permanent residency. Honestly, I haven't really done the research to let you know exactly what educational pathways are currently available, but I can tell you that from experience, my sister qualified herself with a master's in social work and obtained her residency within 6 months of her application. The SOL list that I provided earlier will give you an indication of what is currently available to pursue. However, it's also important to note that these options can change with a moment's notice. My recommendation, if this is your preferred pathway, is to look at previous SOLs and find a consistently available occupation that may be aligned with your values. I can't stress this enough. If you're willing to go down this pathway, be sure to consult a professional to obtain the necessary and important information before starting your journey. With anything, there are risks involved that you should be aware of before committing large amounts of funding towards your goals. The landscape of earning a PR is ever changing depending on the economic reasoning of Australia. And the only way to secure yourself is to continually obtain as much information as you possibly can. Number 3, de facto or marriage. A de facto relationship in law is defined as a requirement that two people, who may be of the same or opposite sex, have a relationship as a couple living together on a genuine domestic basis. This does not include legally married couples or people living together who are related by family. Marriage relationships, though, are pretty self-explanatory. It should go without saying that this isn't something to lightly consider, as this pathway will not only affect you, but also another person's life. If you're considering this pathway, I highly recommend that you are honest with your partner in your pursuits. The burden of carrying a relationship this way may affect the authenticity in your emotional values towards your partner. This amount of pressure may be unhealthy, especially for a budding relationship, when both sides haven't had the time or space to form agreements on the needs of each individual. However, if you find yourself in the position to go down this path, it's important to note that upon application, you will be granted a bridging visa. That could take a few years to validate. When you're on a bridging visa, leaving Australia isn't as easy as just booking a ticket and hopping onto a plane. You'll be required to give valid reason to your travel plans by applying for a travel visa every time you want to leave the country. I personally would not recommend starting a relationship with the idea of this pathway in mind. It puts unnecessary strain on any relationship and may affect your mental and emotional health in the process. But if you are already in a healthy relationship in Australia at the time of application, then by all means, this is a great way to secure your position in Australia with a person you love. Number 4, family sponsored. If you already have direct family living in Australia, you may be able to apply through this option. The definition of family includes partners, children, parents, or dependent relatives. That is, people you're caring for. If you have a sister, cousin, auntie, uncle, or distant relative, you will not qualify for this pathway. I won't go into too much detail in this section because if you already have family in this scenario, then the options would likely be already considered through your process. Number 5, distinguished talent. The next one on my list is the distinguished talent pathway that requires you to have an accolade of internationally recognized record of exceptional and outstanding achievements. I personally don't know anyone who's gone through this pathway, but I believe these are for people who are deemed, celebrities in their fields. Entertainers, researchers, athletes, investors perhaps are some that may sit in this category. I'm sure the assessments are tough in this one, but if you think you can be considered, why not check it out? Number 6, refugee or humanitarian visas. The final one on this list to consider is if you fall into the category of people who need to leave their home country due to persecution. Refugees should not be confused with being an asylum seeker. There is a difference. Asylum seekers are people seeking international protection, but whose claims for refugee status have not yet been determined. If you follow me because you're part of the LGBT community from a country like Malaysia, seeking refuge may be something you've considered, but this isn't something you should also consider too lightly, because taking refuge in another country like Australia should come with a word of caution as well. You may be held in a detention center for an unlimited amount of time until they process your case. There's actually no limit in law or policy to the length of time for which they may detain a person. You may not be able to return to your home country once this process begins. You may potentially be rejected and sent to another country if Australia does not process your case in your favor. I would only suggest considering this method if you feel like your life is in danger wherever you're from. Also, if you have any questions, maybe leave them in the comments below. If I'm not able to answer you, maybe someone else who's seen this video might. As to all things in life, it's always best to be prepared for what may come. So that's all the pathways that I currently know of. The topic of migration was something that has always been prevalent in my life. And I hope by sharing some of my understanding of this experience in a video, it may help you in your migration journey somehow. Things change over time, and some of my experiences shared may have gone through changes or updates that may not be prevalent anymore as well. Or maybe new pathways have been included that I'm unaware of. If you're watching this and have noticed something amiss, please call me out and maybe share your experiences in the comments below so others may benefit from it too. All the best on your migration journey. And until next time,